Hey YouTube. I was recording a video, and it was a question about electric chokes because mine's not working right. I just installed an electric choke in my 83 Olds, and it's not kicking off like it should. And then the engine, I think the engine heat itself was actually causing the choke to warm up physically, so it would actually kick off. But I answered my own question during the video, um, and it's a tricky little tip about installing electric chokes, aftermarket electric chokes in your carbureted cars. And there's no information online. You can't find anything online about it. It's not even in the YouTube videos. Maybe because it's just so obvious that no one would think to talk about it. And maybe I'm just an idiot, but I'm gonna make this video anyway because maybe there's some other idiot out there that can't figure it out and they would like to watch this video. But basically, here's the electric choke. And side note, believe it or not, on these C bodies / B bodies from the 80s on the GM cars, there is no switched 12 volt under the hood that you can use other than the wipers. And if you don't want to splice into a wiper and possibly mess up your wiper, intermittent wiper function, you can't wire your electric choke into anything, and that is ridiculous. It was very frustrating for me to learn that, and what I actually ended up doing was wiring my electric choke into my power antenna wiring harness, which was unused because the motor's busted, and that goes through the firewall via grommet. And on the other side, I just unplugged that from the radio and hooked it up to one of the empty 12 volt ignition slots on the fuse box, and that's my 12 volt source, so I didn't actually have to drill any holes in the firewall, thank God. But it took a very long time for me to figure out that I could do that because I was looking for unused 12 volt sources and there's none, which is stupid. But anyway, past that side note, this is an electric choke. This is a factory quadrajet electric choke, but it's not factory to this car because this car had a hot air choke or a heat riser choke. But the choke tube on mine was cracked, and I had to replace it with vacuum line. The vacuum line kept getting dry rotted, and the heat cracked, and then it would disintegrate, and then I'd have a huge vacuum leak, plus my choke won't work right. So I finally just bit the bullet and put an electric choke on it, and that's what this is right here. And I capped off the old line here so that doesn't leak. But basically, when you get this kit for this, you get the thermostat here, and you get a couple of screws, and you get an electrical connector, and you have to buy your own wire and stuff like that. You don't get a gasket. So I thought, oh shit, well, I better just reuse the choke gasket because you need to have a gasket on the choke, because otherwise there'd be a vacuum leak and your car will run weird. You don't want to do that because this is a one-wire electric choke. The ground is through the body of the thermostat. It grounds through the metal that this choke housing is made out of into the intake manifold, which is grounded through the engine ground to the battery. So if you have a gasket, you're eliminating your ground and your heating element won't work. I have a gasket in there right now. You can see it. There it is, right in between that little metal thing and this metal thing. There she is, right there. And I was wondering, my mind was going in circles. How the hell can I adjust this every which way and my choke just stays on no matter what? Well, it's because I have that gasket there and it's eliminating my ground. So I've got 12 volts and no ground, and that's why my choke isn't working. So if you had just installed an electric choke in your quadrajet or any other carburetor that's a one-wire electric choke, not a two-wire, because two wires you have one positive, one ground, and this wouldn't be a problem. But if you have a one-wire one, don't install a gasket. I should have known better to not do that because it's super obvious. But at the same time, in all the conversion videos I watched and all the forum posts I read, there was nothing, no information. Nobody said don't install the gasket until I just thought of it just now. And honestly, as I'm recording this, I have not tested it without the gasket on there, but it makes sense. So just heed my warning. If you just install an electric choke and it's not working, make sure the gasket is not on there. Other than that, if it's still not working, the only thing I can tell you is make sure you actually have 12 volts at this thing, because when I first wired this up, it turns out that one of the holes on my fuse box, the switch ignition, was actually a 9 volt instead of a 12 volt, so it wasn't going to work anyway because I didn't have enough voltage. But make sure you got 12 volts here, make sure there's no gasket, and make sure your choke's adjusted right, and it should work. It's a pretty simple mechanism. But yeah, there you go. There's a tip for you. I found that out through being a complete idiot. So have fun with that, I guess. I hope I help like at least one guy, maybe. And I'll see you soon.